It's no secret that the animal kingdom is extraordinary and bursting with incredible diversity. But few creatures captivate the imagination quite like those stripped of all color by a single rare genetic twist. And right now, before we get into it, let's get one thing straight, because it matters every time we talk about these animals. Pink or red eyes. That's true albinism. No melanin anywhere. Blue or dark eyes with white coloring. That's leucism. A different gene, a different mechanism, and a very different story. We'll call it out every time it comes up, because the science is part of what makes this fascinating. Here are 35 of the rarest animals in the world. Number 35. Albino zebra, Serengeti, Tanzania. Most people picture a zebra and see a boldly striped animal built like a racehorse. The stripes aren't just for show. Scientists now have strong evidence they repel biting flies, which carry disease and may disorient predators during a chase. Every stripe has a job. So when photographer Sergio Pitamitz crouched near a watering hole in Tanzania's Serengeti National Park and watched a zebra wade in with no stripes at all, just a pale golden-white coat, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. They weren't. This was a partially albino zebra, confirmed by geneticists at Stanford and UCLA who analyzed the photographs. The dark pigment had been almost completely suppressed, leaving behind a coat that glows against the golden savanna like a signal flare. Scientists had suspected albino zebras existed, a handful live on a private reserve near Mount Kenya, but confirmed wild sightings are extraordinarily rare. And here's the problem. Without those stripes, this animal has no fly defense, reduced predator confusion, and zero ability to blend into a herd of 300 identically striped animals. It stands out from half a mile away. A lion doesn't even need to try. Number 34. Albino koala, San Diego Zoo, USA. Koala keepers at the San Diego Zoo have seen a lot over the decades. But in 1986, when a keeper peeked into Mother Matilda's pouch for a routine check, she stopped. Instead of the usual gray tuft, she was looking at a ball of white fur with a vivid pink nose. The zoo had an albino koala, something no one had seen before in captivity. They named him Gulara, meaning moonlight in an Australian Aboriginal language. He was so unusual that he appeared on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, charming millions of viewers without appearing to notice the cameras at all. Then, astonishingly, in 1997, it happened again at the same zoo. A second albino koala was born, named Onyabiri, meaning ghost boy. 2 albino koalas at one facility, both with vivid pink eyes, snow-white fur, and that characteristic sensitivity to light that makes sun exposure a medical concern. The San Diego Zoo now holds the largest koala colony outside of Australia. Of the thousands born there, 2 have been albino. That is how rare this is, and both times the world noticed. Number 33. White giraffe, Ishakbini Hirola Conservancy. In 2017, rangers at Kenya's Ishakbini Hirola Community Conservancy spotted something that stopped them dead. A snow-white giraffe and her calf, moving calmly through the thorn bush like the most natural thing in the world. Word spread fast. The scientific community was immediately cautious and correct. These animals were leucistic, not albino. Their eyes held normal pigmentation, but their skin, their coat, the towering silhouette that should have been amber and brown, pure white. For 3 years, rangers tracked them. In 2020, they went to check on the pair. Only the young male calf remained. His mother and a sibling were dead, almost certainly poached. What followed is a conservation story that should make you furious. This last white giraffe in the world, now alone, was fitted with a GPS tracking device. Rangers watch him constantly. His white coat makes him visible from a distance that would keep most giraffes safe, except from the people who see rarity and see only profit. He is still alive as of last confirmed reports. That's the entire good news. Number 32. Albino boa constrictor, Florida. A Florida homeowner called animal control about a snake in the backyard. That happens in Florida all the time. What does not happen all the time is what the responding specialist found. A 9.5-foot, 53-pound albino boa constrictor coiled in the yard like it owned the property. Chalk white scales, cream patterning, pink eyes that tracked every movement. Albino boas lack the brown, green, and tan camouflage that makes normal individuals almost invisible in leaf litter and low vegetation. In the wild, that invisibility is the difference between eating and being eaten. This animal was also significantly overweight, which tells you everything you need to know about where it had been living. Someone had kept this as a pet, probably for years, feeding it well and keeping it away from any real threats. Then it either escaped or was released. In the wild, an animal this conspicuous doesn't last long. In someone's Florida backyard, apparently just fine. Number 31. Albino alligator, USA, multiple locations. There are fewer than 100 confirmed albino alligators on Earth. That number includes every individual in captivity and any that have survived infancy in the wild, which almost none do. A normal alligator is dark, textured, and nearly invisible in murky southern swamp water. An albino alligator is bright white, pink-eyed, and visible from the bank. Hatchlings that inherit this mutation become easy prey for birds, larger gators, and anything else in the ecosystem that eats small reptiles. The ones that survive do so because humans intervene. Wild Florida's Blizzard and Snowflake are two of the most documented albino gators alive, and the park has been successfully hatching at least one albino offspring per year for several years running. At the Newport Aquarium in Kentucky, two more named Snowball and Snowflake draw visitors from across the country. These animals are also acutely sensitive to UV light, requiring shade management that their wild counterparts simply cannot access. White skin under a Florida sun without protection isn't just uncomfortable, it causes severe tissue damage. Every one of these animals exists because someone decided to step in. Number 30. Albino panda, Wolong National Nature Reserve, China. In 2019, a camera trap deep in China's Wolong National Nature Reserve captured footage of something that had never been documented before, a fully white giant panda. No black patches on the ears, no dark rings around the eyes, no markings of any kind. Just a large panda-shaped animal the color of fresh snow, wandering through bamboo forest like it had somewhere to be. Scientists confirmed this was consistent with a rare recessive albino mutation. Both copies of the gene would need to have been inherited from two parents who showed no signs of the condition themselves. Then, in 2023, a second sighting was recorded, likely a different individual, which means this mutation exists in at least a small subset of the wild giant panda population, one of the most intensely monitored animal populations on Earth, and nobody knew. Researchers are now watching carefully. Giant pandas already navigate life with poor depth perception and limited color vision. An albino individual faces all of that, plus zero camouflage in a forest where snow leopards still hunt. Number 29. Albino shark, coast of Great Britain. Fishermen working off the British coast hauled up a small shark, just under 3 feet long, that made everyone on the boat go quiet. No pigmentation anywhere. Milky white skin, pale fins, no markings. The kind of thing you see once and remember for the rest of your life. Scientists estimate true albino sharks appear in roughly 1 in 10,000 births across all shark species, but confirmed sightings are far rarer than that because albino sharks in the wild don't survive long enough to be seen. Sharks are ambush predators. They rely on countershading, dark on top, pale below, to disappear against both the ocean surface and the ocean floor depending on the angle of attack. An all-white shark is visible from every angle. Prey sees it coming. Larger predators see it from above. The specimen caught off Britain was carefully documented, photographed, and released. Scientists noted it appeared healthy. That alone was remarkable. Number 28. Albino owl. An owl is already unsettling in the right light. The rotating head, the absolute silence of its flight, the eyes that seem to look straight through you. Now imagine encountering one that is completely white, not snowy owl white, which is natural adaptation. Albino white, no melanin anywhere, feathers like fresh paper, eyes a deep red from the blood vessels visible through an iris with no pigment to hide them. True albino owls are documented across multiple species worldwide, and each one faces the same cluster of problems. Their feathers, without melanin reinforcement, are structurally weaker than normal. They wear out faster and provide less insulation. They cannot hunt at dawn or dusk without their silhouette being obvious against the sky, and they attract attention from other birds, particularly crows and jays that mob unusual-looking raptors on instinct. In folklore, a white owl has been considered an omen in dozens of cultures across history. In reality, it's an animal running at a significant disadvantage every single day. Number 27. Albino stingray. The first scientifically documented albino stingray was recorded in 2009, and marine biologists responded with the kind of controlled excitement that scientists try very hard to maintain and usually fail at. The animal was immediately nicknamed the pearl stingray, luminous white to pale pink, hovering over the ocean floor like something from a nature documentary that nobody had written yet. What made this particular case especially significant was that the albinism came with physical abnormalities, deformities in the fin structure that affected the animal's ability to maneuver. For a species that hunts by lying flat against the seafloor and ambushing prey from below, both problems are catastrophic. The entire stingray's strategy depends on being invisible against sand and sediment. A white stingray on a sandy ocean floor is less camouflaged than you might think. But against rock, coral, or darker substrate, it might as well be wearing a neon sign. Every day is harder than it needs to be. Number 26. Kermode spirit bear, British Columbia, Canada. The Kermode bear gets mislabeled constantly, so let's be precise. This is not an albino animal. It carries a separate recessive gene, found almost exclusively in black bears along British Columbia's coast, that produces white or cream fur without eliminating pigmentation from the eyes, nose, or skin. Eyes remain dark brown. The nose stays black. This is a distinct coat color variant, not albinism, not leucism. What makes the Kermode bear one of the most extraordinary animals in North America isn't just its appearance, it's the research. A 2016 study found that white phase Kermode bears are more successful salmon fishers than their black counterparts because fish in the river see a white shape against a bright sky and don't register it as a threat the way they do a dark silhouette. The white coat is a hunting advantage in this specific ecosystem. The Gitga'at and other First Nations peoples of British Columbia have known for generations that this animal is something apart. They call it the spirit bear. The science, it turns out, agrees. Number 25. Albino/leucistic lion, Africa. White lions are real, they're documented, and they are not albino. The white lions of South Africa's Timbavati region carry a recessive chinchilla mutation, the same genetic mechanism that produces white coloring in some domestic cats, which dilutes the orange pigment without eliminating it entirely. Their eyes stay blue or gold. Their paw pads retain pigment. They are beautiful and genuinely rare, but they are not albino. A true albino lion would have no pigment anywhere, pink or red eyes, fully white skin under the coat, and zero ability to blend into the tawny grass that lions depend on for every hunt they make. No confirmed, fully documented case of a true albino lion has ever been published in a peer-reviewed study. They are theorized to exist. They may exist. But if one were born in the wild, the honest assessment is that it probably wouldn't survive long enough for anyone to find it. An apex predator that cannot hide is no longer an apex predator. Number 24. Albino kangaroos, Panorama Wildlife Sanctuary, Australia. Australia's Panorama Wildlife Sanctuary was founded in 2012 with a specific mission: protect albino animals that cannot survive in the wild. Owners Anna-Marie Van Riven and her team have built something that doesn't exist anywhere else: a functioning community of albino marsupials on a property designed around their specific needs. 9 albino kangaroos currently live there, alongside albino wallabies and other animals. In the wild, an albino kangaroo in the Australian outback, red soil, golden grass, brown scrub, stands out with the kind of visibility that invites every predator in the area. At Panorama, they hop freely across open ground, graze without constant threat, and live something resembling a normal life. The sanctuary isn't just a refuge, it's proof that with the right conditions, these animals aren't as fragile as the wild makes them. The wild is the problem, not the animals. Number 23. Albino raven, Pearl. For years, ornithologists quietly doubted that albino ravens actually existed. Ravens are deep, glossy black, a black so complete it has an iridescent sheen. The idea of a completely white one felt like folklore. Then Pearl was found as a 2-month-old chick, and the debate ended. She was the last known surviving albino raven at the time of her discovery. Her personality was unlike anything her keepers expected: calm, curious, entirely comfortable with stillness. She'd sit beside her owner's bed for hours without making a sound. But albinism had taken something from her that isn't always discussed. Without melanin, her feathers lacked the microstructure that makes raven feathers waterproof. She could not fly in the rain. A bird that cannot fly in wet weather, in a climate where wet weather is frequent, is an animal living on borrowed time. Pearl was shot with a pellet gun in 2015. She was killed because whoever did it apparently decided that something that looked that impossible couldn't be real. She was real, and she is gone. Number 22. Albino dolphin, Eastern Cape, South Africa. Boat captain Lloyd Edwards was working a whale-watching route off South Africa's Eastern Cape when he noticed something flashing white inside a pod of over 200 common dolphins. He turned the boat, Marine biologists on board confirmed what they were seeing. A dolphin with coloring consistent with true albinism, pink-white skin, no visible dark pigmentation anywhere. Here's what's unusual about this sighting. This animal might actually be okay. Dolphins don't rely on camouflage the way most marine animals do. They navigate, hunt, and communicate primarily through echolocation and sound. They live in large, socially bonded pods where protection comes from numbers and coordination, not concealment. They have few natural predators. An albino dolphin is conspicuous, yes, but conspicuous in a pod of 200 animals moving together at speed is a very different situation than being a lone white fish on a coral reef. This may be one of the rare cases where the animal the genetics didn't favor actually has a fighting chance. Number 21. Albino horse, worldwide. This is where the science gets genuinely complicated, and where most viral posts get it wrong. When you see a stunning all-white horse with pink skin and pale eyes labeled albino, the honest answer is probably not. True genetic albinism in horses, the kind that eliminates all melanin production and results in pink hooves, a pink muzzle, and completely depigmented skin, is extraordinarily rare. Most horses called albino are actually maximally expressed white gene variants, or cremello, or gray horses that have faded over time. A genuine albino horse must inherit a recessive mutation from both parents and will have absolutely no markings, no gray, no dappling, no shadowing anywhere. Most equine geneticists maintain that confirmed cases are nearly unheard of. The debate is ongoing in specialist circles, and it's not settled. But if a true albino horse exists, with all the associated light sensitivity and vision challenges, it's an animal of staggering rarity, moving through a world built for a coat color it doesn't have. Number 20. Albino skunk, Daisy, Indiana, USA. Albino skunks show up in fewer than 1% of the wild population. Most albino animals avoid human contact instinctively. Most albino animals do not become the unofficial mascot of an entire Indiana town. Daisy is not most albino animals. She visits local businesses. She poses for photos. People pick her up. She has regulars, people who come specifically to see her, who talk about her the way some towns talk about their high school football team. Her albinism, incidentally, does absolutely nothing to reduce her chemical defense system. Skunks produce their spray from glands that have nothing to do with melanin. The friendly albino skunk who lets strangers cuddle her is fully armed at all times. Everyone who loves Daisy knows this. They've all made a calculated decision. So far, it appears to be working out. Number 19. Albino hummingbird, the Americas. Hummingbirds are the most visually spectacular birds on Earth. The iridescent greens, the flashing magenta throats, the structural colors that shift with the angle of light. All of that comes from melanin and specialized feather architecture that melanin makes possible. Remove the melanin and you remove the color entirely. What's left is a white hummingbird, but the color is only part of what's missing. Melanin reinforces feather structure at the molecular level. Albino hummingbirds have weaker feathers than their pigmented counterparts, and a hummingbird beats its wings up to 80 times per second. That's 80 opportunities per second for a structurally compromised feather to degrade faster than it can be replaced. Albino hummingbirds have reduced flight efficiency, cannot perform the iridescent courtship displays that drive mating success, cannot hide during nesting, and tire faster during predator evasion. They are built for a life that their genetics actively prevent them from living. Number 18. Albino reindeer, Scandinavia and beyond. 1 in 20,000 reindeer is born albino. In Scandinavia's reindeer herding Sami communities, the reaction to a white calf is complicated, something between awe and worry, because the Sami know exactly what albinism means for an animal that lives in a world of constant predation. True albino reindeer have compromised vision from the moment they're born, the same photosensitivity that affects every albino mammal, worsened by the extreme contrast of sunlight on snow. They are abandoned by herds with striking regularity. Other reindeer, disturbed by the unusual appearance, move away from albino individuals during vulnerable moments. Wolves, wolverines, and eagles spot them first, every single time. And yet these animals exist. They are born, they breathe, they try. The world was not designed for them. Some of them make it anyway. Number 17. Albino orca, Frosty, Southern California. Whale watchers operating off Southern California's coast spotted something that made the boat go quiet. A completely white orca, 3 years old, traveling inside a pod of 6 normally colored individuals. Marine biologists confirmed the coloring was consistent with true albinism. They named her Frosty. Here's why Frosty's survival is significant. She's 3 years old. Most wild albino animals don't survive infancy. The ones that do rarely make it to adolescence without the protection of their group. Frosty has a pod, and orcas are apex predators with no natural enemies, which means her white coloring carries far less survival risk than it would for almost any other marine animal. Her pod appears to be actively traveling with her, not around her. Scientists following the group report she is thriving. An albino animal surviving in the wild at 3 years old, integrated into a functioning social unit. That is as good a news story as this subject ever produces. Number 16. Albino hedgehog, Miss Twinkle, North Yorkshire. For every 100,000 hedgehogs born in the UK, approximately 1 will be albino. Miss Twinkle of North Yorkshire hit that 1 in 100,000 mark and then went viral anyway, because round white hedgehogs with red eyes turn out to be one of the internet's more reliable weak spots. What's genuinely interesting about albino hedgehogs, beyond the obvious visual appeal, is how albinism interacts with their specific survival strategy. Most albino animals are devastated by the loss of camouflage. Hedgehogs don't primarily rely on camouflage. Their first line of defense is to curl into a tight, spiny ball that makes them deeply unpleasant to bite, carry, or swallow. Being white doesn't meaningfully compromise that strategy. It does make them more visible to owls, which hunt by sight and can spot a pale shape in low light. But compared to what albinism does to a zebra or a reindeer, a white hedgehog is navigating a much more manageable disadvantage. Number 15. Albino spider, UK and North America. Spiders don't generate a lot of sympathy from most people. An albino spider generates something closer to fascinated discomfort, which is arguably the correct response. The albino zebra spider of the UK, a jumping spider normally decorated with high-contrast black and white markings for species recognition and courtship, presents in albino form as a small, entirely white creature that looks like a spider wrapped in tissue paper. In North America, the albino orb weaver is the more commonly documented case, pale yellow, where its counterparts carry dark brown and black. For web-building spiders, some of the camouflage pressure is reduced because they hunt from fixed positions rather than stalking prey. But albino jumping spiders face a different problem. Their species uses visual signals for mate recognition, and a white spider fails to produce the correct signals. It can potentially attract no mate at all, condemned by appearance to a reproductive dead end. 1 generation, no continuation. Number 14. Albino sloth, ghost of the forest. In 2017, an eco-tourist group in the Amazon spotted something motionless in the canopy above them. White, completely white, with pale blue eyes that caught the light through the leaves. A genuine albino sloth, immediately nicknamed the ghost of the forest by the guides, and the name was not a dramatic overreach. Sloths are already perfectly camouflaged in the gray-green canopy. This one was not. It was hanging 60 feet up in a tree, visible from the trail below, glowing against the shadow like something placed there deliberately. Then there's Frosty, rescued roadside in Costa Rica in 2019, found on the ground, exposed, in the kind of vulnerable state that doesn't usually end well. She was brought to a wildlife rehabilitation center that specialized in exactly this, animals whose genetics had put them at a severe disadvantage and who needed time and space to recover before any return to the wild was possible. 2 documented albino sloths, 2 continents, the same problem, the same white coat that turns the world's most invisible animal into the world's most visible one. Number 13. Albino elephant, Asia, historical and modern. The cultural weight attached to albino elephants across Asia is unlike anything associated with any other albino animal anywhere in the world. In Burma, the possession of a white elephant was considered direct evidence of a king's divine mandate to rule, not a nice thing to have. Proof that heaven approved of you. Wars were fought over them. The title Lord of the White Elephant was an official royal designation in the Burmese court system. In Thailand, the situation remains legally significant today. Every white elephant found in the country belongs, by law, to the king. Not gifted to the palace. Belongs. The animal passes into royal ownership the moment it's confirmed white. Modern analysis has documented that many of these white elephants are leucistic rather than fully albino. Skin with reduced rather than absent pigmentation. Eyes that retain some color. True albino elephants, with fully pink skin and red eyes, exist but are poorly documented because the distinction matters less to the cultural framework than the appearance. For thousands of years, the white elephant wasn't a scientific specimen. It was a symbol of everything a civilization believed about power and the divine. Number 12. Albino lobster. Marine biologists put the odds of catching a true albino lobster at somewhere between 1 in a few million and 1 in 100 million, depending on which study you cite. The range itself tells you something. These animals are so rare that there isn't enough data to pin the probability down accurately. Lucky was pulled from the waters off Maine in 2017 by fishermen who knew immediately they had something unusual. They donated her to the Maine State Aquarium, where she became an attraction that drew visitors specifically to see her. On the other side of the Atlantic, Snowball came up in a North Sea catch in 2016, and in a decision that reflects something admirable about whoever was on that boat, was released back into the sea, unharmed, without being kept as a trophy or sold. Albino lobsters lack the range of pigment cells that give normal lobsters their mottled green-brown armor. The result is a white animal in an ecosystem where camouflage is survival. Lucky is in an aquarium. Snowball went back to the ocean. Only one of them is definitely still alive. Number 11. Albino bat. A man looked into his garden one evening and found something small and white clinging to his wall. It took him a moment to process what he was looking at. A bat, completely white. He contacted wildlife authorities, who confirmed it was an albino individual. The first documented sighting of an albino bat in the United Kingdom in approximately 30 years. Bats present an interesting case study in albinism because their primary survival tool, echolocation, is completely unaffected by melanin. They can navigate, hunt, and avoid obstacles in total darkness just as effectively white as they would be brown or gray. The problem comes at dusk and dawn, the transition periods when bats leave and return to their roosts. In those minutes of low light, a bat with stark white fur is exactly as visible as you'd expect to owls, kestrels, and other raptors that patrol at those hours. The darkness that normally hides them is their protection. The moment there's any light at all, a white bat is the most visible thing in the sky. Number 10. Snowdrop the albino penguin. Bristol Zoo announced the hatching of an albino king penguin chick in 2002, and the response was immediate. They named her Snowdrop, and for a year she was one of the most photographed animals in Britain. A tiny white puff of feathers in a colony of birds that all looked identical to each other, and nothing like her. Penguins use their coloring for two functions that Snowdrop couldn't access. In the water, countershading, dark back, white belly, makes them nearly invisible from above and below simultaneously. Snowdrop was visible from every angle. On land and ice, their markings drive mate recognition and courtship. Snowdrop's colony rejected her. She died at Bristol Zoo in 2004, 2 years old, never having integrated into her colony, never having been accepted as a potential mate, never having experienced the kind of social life that king penguins depend on for survival. Her enclosure is still remembered by the staff who cared for her. Sometimes the rarest animals have the shortest stories. Number 9. Albino Doberman. USA, the Z Factor. In 1976, a single Doberman was born in the United States with white fur and blue eyes. Her name was Padula's Queen Sheba, Sheba for short. She was bred, her offspring were bred, and within a few generations, a small population of white Dobermans existed in America, all descended from that one animal, all sharing her genetic mutation. The problem is what that mutation actually does. The albino Doberman carries what breeders call the Z factor, a recessive gene that, when inherited from both parents, eliminates pigment production. The health consequences are not cosmetic. These dogs suffer from photosensitivity severe enough to cause chronic eye pain in normal daylight, skin tumors at rates higher than pigmented Dobermans, compromised immune systems, and behavioral issues linked to chronic discomfort from light exposure. Major kennel clubs do not recognize them. The Doberman Pinscher Club of America actively discourages their continued breeding on welfare grounds. Their striking appearance comes at a cost paid entirely by the animal, and the breeding continues anyway. Number 8. Albino snail. Japan and New Zealand. Land snails are not animals that generate a great deal of attention under normal circumstances. An albino land snail is a slightly different proposition. a small, fully white shell moving across the forest floor on a pale, almost translucent body that shows a faint pink through the skin from the tissue underneath. Scientists studying the species Ubiquitous quieta in Japan and New Zealand documented albino individuals and found that the mutation creates problems beyond the obvious visual ones. Melanin contributes directly to shell hardening in many mollusks. It's not just a pigment, it's a structural material. Albino snails may have shells that are slightly more brittle than normal, in an animal where the shell is the entire defense system. They also have reduced eyesight compared to already vision-limited normal snails, a creature already moving at a speed that makes everything else in the world look fast, now doing so with a shell that's potentially less protective and eyes that see even less. Number 7. Albino raccoon. 1 in 750,000 raccoons is born albino. To put that number in scale, there are an estimated 100 to 200 million raccoons in North America. The math still works out to a meaningful number of albino individuals. But seeing one in the wild remains a genuine once-in-a-lifetime event for most people. A family in West Knoxville captured footage of 2 albino raccoons visiting their yard. The video went properly viral, largely because whoever filmed it called them white trash pandas, which is both accurate and immediately quotable. In 2017 in Texas, a baby albino raccoon named Ghost was rescued, rehabilitated over months, and successfully released back into the wild. Ghost made the news twice, once for existing, once for surviving long enough to be released. For an animal whose white coloring makes stealth almost impossible, and whose entire foraging strategy depends on moving unseen in low light, that second headline is the more remarkable one. Number 6. Albino peacock. South Asia. The peacock's tail is one of the most studied and debated structures in evolutionary biology. Darwin found it almost personally troubling. A tail that large and that elaborate is aerodynamically absurd, energetically expensive, and makes its owner more visible to predators. The only reason it exists is that peahens choose males with bigger, more impressive tails. The display is the point. The color is the message. An albino peacock has the architecture and none of the message. The full tail, the full spread, every feather in place, all of it white. Many documented white peacocks actually have pale blue rather than red eyes, which puts them technically in leucistic territory rather than true albinism. But the functional result is the same. A male that cannot produce the iridescent color display that drives peahen preference is a male that will struggle to mate in the wild. The fan opens, nothing happens. Nature built an extraordinary instrument, and albinism removed every note it was designed to play. Number 5. Albino turtle, Telangana, South India. A rare albino Indian flapshell turtle was pulled from a village pond in Telangana, southern India, and the people who found it immediately understood they were looking at something that didn't belong to ordinary experience. Conservation authorities were contacted. Scientists arrived. The animal was documented. A small freshwater turtle with white skin, depigmented shell, and the vivid pink eyes of a fully expressed albino. Normal Indian flapshell turtles are brown and olive green, patterned to disappear against mud and aquatic vegetation. This one was white in murky water, which actually provides slightly more concealment than white in clear water, but not much. The deeper problem is the skin. Without melanin, turtle skin is acutely vulnerable to UV radiation. In captivity, these animals require precisely controlled UVB lighting to avoid severe tissue damage. In the wild, the sun is not controlled. Every hour in shallow water near the surface is an hour of UV exposure. This animal was never built to handle. A creature designed by evolution to be invisible, now impossible to miss, and slowly being damaged by the light it cannot avoid. Number 4. Albino/white deer. For decades, the former Seneca Army Depot in upstate New York, a fenced military installation the size of a small city, inadvertently created one of the most remarkable natural experiments in American wildlife history. Normal white-tailed deer entered the fenced perimeter and couldn't leave. Hunters couldn't enter. Over generations, a white gene variant spread through the enclosed population because the only predation pressure was removed. By the time the depot closed, a herd of several hundred white deer existed inside the fence, the largest concentration of white-phase white-tailed deer on Earth. Most are leucistic rather than strictly albino, but the herd includes some true albino individuals with fully pink eyes and completely depigmented skin. True albino deer in the open wild face near certain predation. A white coat in a brown Pennsylvania or New York winter forest is not camouflage. It's visibility. The Seneca herd survives because of the fence, because of the accident of military geography, because the normal pressures of predation were simply removed. The conservation organization now managing the land gives tours. The deer walk up to the vehicles. They have no reason to be afraid of anything. For them, the world has always been safe. Number 3. Alba, the albino orangutan, Borneo, Indonesia. On April 29, 2017, conservation workers in central Kalimantan got a tip. A villager had a caged orangutan found in a patch of cleared forest nearby. What they drove out to find was something no one had ever documented before: a female orangutan, approximately 5 years old, with white fur, pale skin, and vivid blue eyes. The only albino orangutan ever recorded. Her name became Alba, from the Latin for white. She arrived at the Nyaru Menteng Rehabilitation Center dehydrated, underweight, infected with parasites, and deeply stressed. She also, from the very beginning, made her opinion of humans absolutely clear. She didn't want to be near them, didn't want their food from their hands, and resisted any form of dependency. This turned out to be one of the most important things about her. Rehabilitation teams specifically tried to prevent rescued orangutans from attaching to human caretakers, because that attachment makes release nearly impossible. Alba's natural aversion to people meant she was a release candidate from early in her recovery. On December 18, 2018, after more than 18 months of care, Alba was transported 16 hours by truck through muddy trails and 4 hours by boat upriver to Bukit Baka Bukit Raya National Park and released. 1 year later, monitoring teams encountered her unexpectedly in the canopy. She was foraging, nest building, socializing with other released orangutans. She was thriving. In a subject full of animals the world wasn't built for, Alba is the rarest kind of story, the one that ends well. Number 2. Manukura the white kiwi, Pukaha, New Zealand. On May 1, 2011, a kiwi egg hatched at the Pukaha National Wildlife Centre in New Zealand's North Island. Nobody expected anything unusual. When the chick emerged completely white, every feather snow pale, the color you'd expect from an animal that had been edited, the keeper who checked the nest stopped and looked again. In 9 years of working with kiwi, she had never seen this. Manukura, named by Rangitane Maori leader Mike Kawana, the word meaning of chiefly status, became something far larger than a zoo exhibit almost immediately. For the local Rangitane o Wairarapa iwi, her arrival was spiritually significant. A white kiwi in Maori tradition is a taonga, a treasure, a sign. Media requests flooded in from around the world. The center manager later joked that she had become Manukura's personal assistant, fielding international press while a small white bird slept in the kiwi house, unbothered. She was leucistic, not strictly albino. Her eyes and skin retained normal pigmentation, the white feathers the result of a rare gene inherited from 2 brown parents who each carried it silently. She lived for 9 years. She inspired a children's book by Joy Cowley. She became the face of New Zealand's kiwi conservation movement. She died in December 2020 after surgery to remove an unfertilized egg she was unable to pass on her own. The Wildlife Center released a statement calling it one of the saddest days they had ever experienced. They were not exaggerating. Number 1. The white moose, Scandinavia and North America. Hans Nielsen is a municipal councilman in Sweden's Värmland region who had been trying to photograph a white moose for 3 years. 3 years of walking the same forests at dawn, watching the same river crossings, coming home empty-handed. Then, one evening, he stood at the edge of the water and watched something enormous emerge from the tree line. A bull moose, every inch of him white, antlers in velvet, wading into the current with the absolute unhurried authority of an animal that has never had reason to be afraid of anything. The Värmland region on the Sweden-Norway border is the most reliable place on Earth to see a white moose. Researchers estimate around 100 live there, out of approximately 400,000 moose total in Sweden. Most are leucistic rather than fully albino. But the story of why their numbers have held and may be increasing is the most interesting part. Local hunters have chosen not to shoot them. For generations, by informal cultural agreement, white moose in this region have been left alone. A professor at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences noted in 2017 that this is effectively selective breeding in reverse. By removing the hunting pressure on white animals, the community may be making the white gene more common over time. What started as instinct became conservation outcome. In indigenous communities across Canada, the white moose is a spirit animal, a messenger, a sacred presence. When a white moose was shot in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia in 2013 by hunters who saw a trophy rather than a tradition, Mi'kmaq communities held a sacred ceremony of mourning and honor for the animal. In Ontario, white moose are protected by law. Across much of Canada, shooting a moose more than 50% white in color is prohibited. This is an animal that, wherever it walks, through a Swedish river at dusk, through a Canadian forest at first light, makes people stop, put the gun down, and just watch. That is what number 1 looks like. 35 animals. 35 cases of a single genetic switch flipping at the wrong moment, or the right one, depending on how you look at it. A white orca with a pod that protects her. An orangutan who hated humans enough to be set free. A white kiwi who became a national symbol. A moose that makes people put their guns down. Which one stayed with you? Drop it in the comments. I read every one. And remember, pink or red eyes, albino. Blue or dark, leucistic. The natural world never stops surprising us. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.